The best roguelites make you excited to lose. Mewgenics doesn't. The issue isn't difficulty. It's not even the inherent RNG of the genre. The problem is how bad failure feels. Losing in Mewgenics feels like lost time, not like part of the progression curve. And in a genre built entirely around repetition, this is a serious problem. Let's use Hades as an example. In both Hades games, failure advances the narrative and gives you tangible power progression. Character relationships deepen, dialogue evolves, new systems unlock, death is seamlessly integrated into the loop. You lose, but you still move forward. In Slay the Spire, losses feel educational. You understand why you failed and how to adjust for next time. Even in The Binding of Isaac, chaotic discovery drives your momentum. Even a failed run can reveal something wild. Strong roguelites metabolize failure. They turn the sting of losing into a dopamine counterweight. The goal is simple. You fail and immediately want to start a new run. Mewgenics isn't creating that impulse for me. The meta progression in Mewgenics is powerful, but slow and logistical. At first, expanding your house feels muted. Then you realize you can optimize each room. Elite breeding rooms for your uber-cat specimens, kitten rooms for stat growth, fighting rooms to intentionally farm stat gains, furniture upgrades to maximize efficiency, mediocre cats get sent to NPCs to fuel the meta progression. Once your infrastructure is online, the system is genuinely deep. And that's kind of the issue. It's logistically powerful, but not emotionally satisfying. It's an incredible cat eugenics simulator. That's where I've had the most fun with the game. Optimizing bloodlines, planning traits, shaping stats. That's all really compelling stuff. The dungeon runs, though, much less so. There are several overlapping reasons. Firstly, turn-based pacing. Failure is slow. You often know a run is doomed before it ends. Sometimes, by the end of the first level, you can already tell your cats are too weak. So you retreat, toss them to NPCs, and spin up a new batch. The slow turn-based combat makes even short, one-layer runs feel very drawn out. You're churning cats, not really chasing momentum. Time friction is one of the worst types of friction in games, and Mewgenics unfortunately has a lot of it. There's bosses like Fenrir, which aren't difficult, just tedious. They run around the map planting traps, not really interacting with your cats. That's not a skill check, that's a patience check. Secondly, injury stacking. When a cat is downed but survives the encounter, it revives with a permanent injury, which is a stat debuff. Early weakness is normal in roguelikes. But here, early mistakes compound immediately and permanently. You're already fragile at the start of a run. Adding stacking debuffs amplifies that fragility. It makes experimentation feel riskier in a way that isn't exciting, just constricting. Thirdly, the arcane knowledge gap. After 14 hours, I'm still not entirely sure how to reliably scale certain damage types. I don't fully understand what governs some attack calculations. Maybe I missed it. Maybe it's buried somewhere. But losses often feel informational rather than systemic. I didn't know that becomes the reason for a failed run. New bosses and enemy types can be brutal the first time, not because they're mechanically demanding, but because they exploit a knowledge gap. The second time you face them, they're very manageable. That doesn't really feel like mastery. It feels closer to padding. There's also an issue with the branching path. When given the choice between a normal path and a hard path, it is almost always correct to choose the hard path. Why? First, the hard path gives significantly better rewards and events. Second, if you can't handle the hard path, you probably aren't scaling well enough to clear later bosses anyway. The normal path increases variance because it gives weaker rewards. The hard path actually stabilizes scaling. So the safe route is actually the more volatile and less safe one. A good branching system asks, what does my build need right now? Mewgenics asks, do you want more variance or less? In an RNG-heavy game, I don't find that compelling. Once options becomes mathematically correct most of the time, that's not really a meaningful choice anymore. My first successful caves clear revolved around a fighter who reduced his intelligence to 0 for extra attacks, converted mana into strength, gained +2 strength per kill, and scaled crit and strength through his passives. It worked, and it worked very well. But it wasn't explosive. It wasn't wild. It felt more relieving that I had finally assembled something functional enough to survive the system. Most items have felt muted individually. Synergies often revolve around thorns or familiars 14 hours in. Power spikes are gradual, not dramatic. Strong builds have felt stable, not chaotic. And in a roguelite, I want at least a little chaos in my favor. The NPCs also largely feel like reward dispensers. The tone is wacky and exaggerated, but not really emotionally grounding. There's a lot of personality, but not a lot of attachment. Contrast that again with Hades, where mechanical progression and emotional progression are intertwined. In Mewgenics, failure doesn't really build relationships, it builds infrastructure. And that's a huge difference. Since the Binding of Isaac, the roguelite genre has evolved. Players now expect narrative integration, educational failure loops, immediate meta satisfaction, and a strong build identity. Mewgenics feels philosophically older. It's about grinding for system mastery and infrastructure, but it's missing connective tissue between the grind and the emotion. Mewgenics isn't shallow. It isn't bad. It isn't poorly designed. But its meta progression is logistical, not emotional. Its branching increases volatility instead of creating meaningful decisions. Its builds snowball instead of explode. Its losses feel time costly instead of productive. And in a genre built on repetition, if losing doesn't feel good, then the loop eventually feels wrong. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe for more content.